going back to, well, if the drugs are safe, maybe not so safe, what about supplements? Well, rightfully so, supplements, and most doctors on all these panels will say, don't take supplements, don't take supplements. And I have to agree on a certain level of that. Why? Is because there's a lot of terrible supplements. $61 billion of supplements were sold in 2020. In a terrible economy during the pandemic, we still spent on supplements $61 billion, right? And these are just taken from the headlines recently. FDA updates guidance for dangerous dietary supplements. Consumers inundated with adulterated and counterfeit supplements flag global organizations. I mean, it's a worldwide problem, right? Nearly 800 dietary supplements contain unapproved drug ingredients. Anytime you see something on the late night on television, anything you see that's direct consumer retail, direct consumer sales, anything that tells you can lose weight in 2 days or 3 days, 15 pounds, or get sexual vigor, better than Viagra, kind of thing like that, then, more likely or not, it's going to be tainted or have some kind of pharmaceutical tainting drug. All these things are coming, illegally from China and other countries. Actually, some of them are actually made in basements here in the United States. So we have to be really careful when we talk about dietary supplements. But that doesn't mean we just say, don't take dietary supplements. And this is where a lot of, unfortunately, my colleagues can fail, because their expertise is looking at research and data and food. And that's great. That should be the no-starter, no-brainer. Like everybody, you need to be plant-based. Start with that. And you can't go further until you get that done. However, when we turn to go to a plant-based diet, one of the things that we have an issue with is that we just started. Maybe we just did this like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Sometimes just after this conference, people are going to go more plant-based, right? But that means they have 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 70 years, maybe 80 years of eating the standard American diet. Now we have pathology. Now we have actually disease, and we still have back pain and migraines and joint pains and all stuff. So what do we need to do for that? And this is what I'm here to tell you. Everybody has a superhero, right? And we all have superheroes in the last 10 years. We have Iron Man, Captain America, Black Panther, Doctor Strange. Each superhero has a superpower. And what I want to tell you today, just to make it a little bit light because it's early morning for me, is this. I've been kind of, and this is actually from a patient of mine who's a great artist. They call me Curcuman, like the Superman. What are my superpowers? Well, my superpowers, I'll tell you this. Just to make it light, but also to make it serious here, is that, with my integrative medicine experience, in studying the integrative medicine fellowship program over 20 years with Dr. Weil, you can go to the website, you can look at all my background of all the universities and trainings I've done. But after that, I've done extensive training in herbal and traditional medicines, Ayurvedic medicine and Western medicines, and actually gone to years and years and years of training through this, botanical medicines, but also looking at formulations, looking at research, looking at potency, purity, safety, efficacy, looking at manufacturing. I mean, most doctors have no idea how pills are made, and I can tell you how it goes from a farm all the way to a facility, actually right into your table. And this is my kind of area of specialty. So other people talking about just heart disease and how to put a stent and what the stent looks like, or how to do this drug and looking at a drug study. We're looking at that, but from an aspect of using natural therapies. And my job and my superpowers is to help educate you to be able to choose the right products, because it's not just only eating a plant-based diet. You definitely need to do that. That is a non-starter. However, we still need to go farther so you can go further. So what do we deliver? Sangevany Integrative Medicine Health and Lifestyle Center. That's our facility. It's our, as 20 years. It's interesting. We were an Integrative Medicine Health and Lifestyle Center, and that was our name. And you can look up the story at Sangevany on our website, or I can tell you at the very end of the lecture here. But we were Integrative Medicine Health, it's important, and lifestyle. And now there's a whole area of medicine called lifestyle medicine, which is very interesting that they're trying to coin this term. And it's like, well, integrative medicine also encompasses that. We already encompasses the diet, but we need to go further. We need to talk about plant medicines as well. Because if we're talking about foods, right, as medicine, then we also have to hopefully get enough doctors to learn that the plant foods are also plant medicines. And that's not a far off thing. We just need to understand these aspects of potency, purity, safety, efficacy. This is my mantra for 20 years, potency, purity, safety, efficacy. In fact, last year, 2 companies, I gave a lecture, and they actually took this and they put it in their promotional literature, potency, purity, safety, efficacy. So this is something how, people are trying to catch the buzz of what we need to do. We ensure, I ensure CGMP manufacturing, NSFO, ISO certifications. We look at not only FDA registered facilities, but more importantly, audited facilities. The facilities that we're using, when they see me audited, is because anybody can be registered. So all the companies you see on the internet says FDA registered. That means that they just put their name in a phone book. FDA is not going to come and look at them. There's thousands of companies, right? When we say an audited facility, that means these are companies that are big enough, or more important enough, like what we do is that when we use a patent ingredient, we actually conduct clinical trials. So when clinical trials are conducted on a product that goes to a hospital or university, the FDA has to come in and regulate like a drug, like just like with the virus, with the vaccines, or just like with any kind of drug in the clinical trial. Everything that touches it, everything from where it comes from, how it's the lot number, everything is tracked, right? So when we look at an audit facility, that means it's like the highest amount of verification in terms of safety that can be performed. Our labels will show each ingredient and amounts of both the active and inert ingredients. Here's an important thing. A lot of people say, hey, Dr. Pai, I like your product, but you have these little inert ingredients. These are things that I don't think are safe, or I don't like these little tiny things. But I'm saying, well, those are not dangerous for you. We'll explain why later. But more importantly, that's truth in labeling and transparency. Anything that touches a powder or a pill or a capsule, whether it's a prescription drug, by the way, same thing, or a natural supplement, and when you're in an audited facility, we have to disclose on the label everything. So even the little slight lubricant that slides a pill or a tablet down a machine to go into a bottle, which is every single product in America. Anything that you get in a bottle has touched these ingredients, but they don't have to label it because they haven't been audited. Right. So a lot of the health food companies you'll see, even the ones that are organic or whole food based, they will say, oh, it's a clean label. It's because they're not truth in labeling. If they were audited, they would eventually have to come back and say, no, we have to say all these other things. So we just openly tell everybody, like, if you know anything about manufacturing, these are the things that manufacturers have to use. If they're not putting it on the label, then they're not truth in labeling. Okay. We want to show patent ingredients. We want to provide certificate of analysis. So we look at, every batch of every product, heavy metals, pesticides, mycotoxins, and then it matches, when we look at consumer labs and consumer reports, they look at supplements and why they all fail. It's because most products don't even have what they have on the label in their product. Sometimes they're like less than 5%. Sometimes they don't even have any of the ingredient in there, right? They're just putting it together and selling it. So we want to ensure that these are potency, purity, safety, efficacy. And in our aspect, why sometimes people say, Dr. Pai, but your supplements are a little bit more expensive, or when you use these things and you give it to me, a little bit more expensive, because we're following this clinical data. Like, I have to provide a clinical dose. A lot of companies love to take an idea of, okay, here's a research of an ingredient. And say the study shows like 1,000 milligrams in a study, okay? And they'll put like 50 milligrams or even 5 milligrams in the tablet. And, they can claim like, okay, this important ingredient in their advertising. The patient won't know, the consumer doesn't know that you need to get a higher dose to get a clinical benefit. And so we always look at, what was the study, and we match that clinical dose so that we can have a clinical effect. Now, when we look at all the natural anti-inflammatories, for example, there's hundreds of them, and there's research labs, in cytokine and inflammatory research aspects where they've actually taken, all the spices, all the fruits, all the vegetables, all the Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine and other plants and foods, and they actually looked at those chemical compounds. This is what all the research is going on right now in the literature, is looking at all these specific compounds. And in fact, one of the highest growth of these anti-inflammatory compounds is actually converting them into drugs, because, we can now take something natural. Remember, 70% of all prescription drugs is originally derived from plant molecules. Right. The only reason why it's synthetic is because now instead of taking it from a grape, or taking it from the turmeric root, or taking it from a leaf of a plant, it's easier to actually manufacture it, right? Because then you can go pick it up and we can dispense and deliver it in any kind of pharmacy. But the idea is that we have to understand that there's a science behind it. So it's not just like, oh, this sounds like a delightful thing, or maybe some marketing thing. There's actually proof in the pudding, saying we can actually discuss the mechanism of action, the pathways. And in fact, unfortunately, with prescription drugs, almost about 70 to 80% of the drugs, if you look at the monograph and you look at mechanism of action, it will say unknown. We have theoretical aspects of it may lower this, it may work via this way, that way pathway, but the true mechanism of action, about 70% of all prescription drugs, we don't know. Yet when we go to herbal medicine, everybody's like, well, tell me how turmeric works, Dr. Pai. I'm like, okay, here's 16,000 different publications on showing you the pathways and mechanisms of action. So there's a little bit of interesting things, like I have to put everything together. Like, everything has to be treated equally. So if you're saying I need to have evidence, I need to provide the evidence, but you can't be two-sided and say, well, just because we can't say ours, you need to prove yours more. We always will prove ours more. But the idea is that we have to put everybody in everything in the same category. So what I'm proud to announce, and I'm proud just to explain right now, and I didn't do this last year in any detail, is Bosmeric. Bosmeric SR is my flagship. And why I'm talking about this is because you need to understand these 4 ingredients as natural anti-inflammatories, particularly with COVID, particularly with the chronic inflammatory responses, and particularly from more people now using NSAIDs going up this past year. Okay, and so I'll go through these ingredients and I'll explain why each one is there. It's called Bosmeric SR.